On today's Apple Daily, looking ahead to Apple's March Madness and maybe April Madness. Does Apple's storage limit Apple Silicon Mac's lifetime? Apple's stance on privacy? The cost of titanium MacBooks? Bringing back MagSafe? And where has my Mac Mini gone?
For the latest Apple news, rumors, and leaks, every weekday at 12 UTC, join us in the iCave.
I'm iCave Dave, and in today's video we are thinking different, so I hope you enjoy the adjusted format, and let me know if you do down in the comments. Also, thanks for all the well wishes when there were no videos at the end of last week. I'll include an update on what was going on at the end of this video so we can get right into the good stuff, the Apple news. But if you're interested, that's where it'll be. Thank you for being probably the kindest YouTube community there is. I appreciate every single one of you, and if you don't want to miss any of our videos, subscribe, ring the bell, and post up #NotificationSquad down in the comments for a shout out in the next video. Apple's March Madness, what will we see? Have we talked about this before? Yes, we have. But I think there's enough going on that it's worth a big old update. Plus, I have a feeling we could actually see two events in the next couple of months, just because of how much we're likely to be seeing arrive soon. So first we'll cover what's coming, and then I'll try and divide them up into what would be March and what would be potentially later in April. First, iOS 14.5. The update to iOS is getting more and more like a full version update, more than a point update, the more we hear, with Apple's app tracking transparency being finally introduced, primarily to troll Mark Zuckerberg, and I think we can all agree that that is objectively a good thing. We'll be picking up more on privacy later in iCave Answers. It'll also introduce the option for your Apple Watch to help unlock your Face ID based iPhone if you're wearing a mask, which is also a pretty big deal, although it won't enable Apple Pay on the iPhone. But of course, if you're wearing an Apple Watch and you're still pulling out your iPhone to do Apple Pay, you're doing it wrong. Use your damn watch. But the way that this seems to be working is that you're going to be able to use your iPhone as normal, and it will be attention based when it unlocks. It will double check that your Apple Watch is on your wrist and unlocked, and it will give you a notification on your watch, so if someone else picks it up nearby and unlocks it, you are able to relock it very quickly from your watch. As I say, it's not going to unlock all of the payment features and things like that, so you won't be able to use it to unlock downloads from the App Store, you won't be able to use it to pay in stores, but it's a pretty good middle ground. iPad Pro update. A14X, mini LED displays, X55 Qualcomm 5G modems, maybe no 11-inch model, let's move on. No, but really, I know we've covered this a few times on the channel, so I will keep it fairly brief. First, A14X, basically an M1, but almost certainly called the A14X. I don't see them calling it an M1 in this, but most likely to be the 4 Firestorm, 4 Ice Storm core model, with possibly 7 GPU core graphics, i.e. the worst binned ones from the MacBook Airs, or possibly even 6 working cores. But all of these options would be absolutely fine for an iPad Pro that will almost certainly never have an external display to drive. Performance-wise though, absolutely bags of power and most likely 8 GB of unified memory across the board. No option for the 16 gigs, there's no reason for us to give those options on an iPad. 5G will come from Qualcomm's X55 modem, the same ones featured in the iPhone 12 range, and this may be the reason that we are seeing these iPads in 2021 and not late 2020, because the demand for iPhone 12 range, except for the mini that apparently nobody wants, was super high, and reportedly Apple had to reallocate modems from the iPad Pro stock to make iPhones faster. Sadly, we won't see Apple's own 5G modems after they bought Intel's modem business, or at least not yet according to the latest reports. Mini LED displays have been expected for a while, being almost as good on contrast as OLED, but without the concerns of burn-in and uneven brightness. This is achieved by having a large number of local dimming zones made possible by a matrix of LEDs behind the LCD display. It's similar to the way that the Pro Display XDR works, just on a smaller, less thick and cheaper stand kind of way. This may contribute to the iPad Pros in 2021 being slightly thicker than they were last year. Finally, the no 11-inch iPad Pro thing. This has mixed rumours, partially that they may only have one size of mini LED display ready for rollout, being the larger 12.9-inch version, but it's also possible that the iPad Air 4th generation is taking its spot on the line, especially if the next generation gains support for ProMotion and Face ID. There were also some random rumours about there being an OLED version on the way too, but it would be very strange for Apple to introduce an OLED version and then quickly switch to mini LED, or to introduce both into the range for different size models. So I'm not convinced about this, but I've been wrong about things before, just don't tell anyone. Apple Pencil Colour. Apparently this may or may not come in matte black, which should of course be called just the MKBHD edition. Now, there's a patent for it including a light sensor or very basic camera in the tip for colour selection from the real world, which has just started to be talked about by other YouTubers. I first talked about Apple Pencil with a camera in the tip for colour selection in the pilot episode of Apple Daily, which was published on the 15th of August last year. Yet everyone else seems to have just picked up on it now. I'll link to that up here, but you know, it was early, and at the time of this recording it has a solid 42 views. Watch at your own risk. If it is something that actually happens, I would imagine the Apple marketing team would do something along the lines of "the world is your palette," and I'm sure that the accompanying adverts will be suitably upbeat. Honestly, this would be a pretty awesome feature, and I can't imagine it actually being that difficult of an engineering challenge, as most big box DIY stores have the ability to colour match stuff you bring in to mix paint to match it, and this would just need to be brought down to a smaller Apple Pencil scale. As a non-electronic engineer myself, I can assure you that miniaturising electronics is very, very easy, probably, if you're Apple. But I do think it is a wicked feature. I do think it's an absolutely awesome feature. If you're able to literally tap this desk and get the exact shade of black that this desk is to paint on your iPad with, that is pretty awesome. If I can do the same with this microphone, or if I can do the same with this blue of my NASA shirt, if I'm drawing something designed to look like a NASA logo, I can grab exactly the colours that are on something I have in print and be able to use them there. If I see something really, really cool in nature, if I want to get exactly the right shade for grass, I can grab a piece of grass and tap it on my Apple Pencil. That is a really, really powerful thing to be able to do, to be able to colour match that. Now I can imagine the difficulty is light shining through things, not looking exactly as the same on the screen as it does in real life, but it's still a pretty amazing feature. Other iPad stuff. There could also be a replacement entry-level iPad which basically takes the iPad Air 3 and adds an A13 chip with its larger 10.5-inch laminated display and thinner design. There's also much more vague talk of the new iPad mini, which nobody seems to agree if it's keeping the old form factor or going to a little bigger in the style of iPad Air and iPad Pro. If it keeps the form factor, I would guess that Apple would move it into the base iPad range instead of aligning it with iPad Air, so we could see an even lower iPad starting price. AirTags. John Prosser has been tweeting that AirTags are still on track for a March launch, and it sounds like they've been ready for a long time, just waiting for the pandemic to ease enough that people will actually be able to go outside and lose their valuable possessions, only for Apple to direct you back to them. The small, coin-sized geo-trackers use Apple's Find My network to narrow down their location, before the U1 chip gives the exact location to the phone of the owner, to approximately 10 centimeters accuracy, which is pretty impressive. It's thought that augmented reality will be used on the phone or iPad locating the tags to show exactly where the items are on the screen, possibly by showing a balloon apparently tied to the item. Handy when it's down the side of your couch, absolutely. Now, Sarambites, who has a great YouTube channel that you should definitely check out, thinks there will be no event and just a video, but what actually defines an event these days? They're all just videos. Of course, it's possible that it would be more like the AirPods Max launch, where there was just a nicely produced, short-ish advert, but for me, when you're trying to explain what a new product category is for Apple, I do think you need some sort of product demos. I don't think Air Force 1 showing you how to use Magic Keyboard and trackpad case is exactly the same kind of thing. But you should absolutely check out Sarambites' videos, because I'm not missing one anymore. They're awesome. M1X Macs. Apple's previously featured iMacs in March, as it is a big winner for the education customers, and this year could see the introduction of replacements for the current iMacs with Intel that haven't seen a design refresh for years, like 9 years. Bigger displays, smaller bezels, M1X with way more performance cores than M1, and improved graphics are likely to come, maybe without the chin too. Expect something that looks between a Pro Display XDR and an iPad Pro on a stick. Boxy, flat design, big edge-to-edge display. We've done a video on Apple Silicon iMacs recently that you can see just up here. Also, MacBook Pros are rumoured to be updated, although it's still unclear whether these will be released soon or around WWDC. Rumours are conflicting, but we are expecting a 14-inch and a 16-inch redesigned MacBook Pro with the same M1X inside as the iMac, more connectivity including SD card readers returning, MagSafe coming back to the Mac too, a beloved feature, but again we'll be talking more about MacBook charging in iCave answers later in this video. Again, we've done a full video on these as well as our video on predicting M1X performance based on some maths and my poor understanding of microprocessor scaling. But seeing how wrong I am will be fun. And that's a lot to be introduced at one event, and there's also rumours of an updated Apple TV, new AirPods updates for the baseline and the AirPods Pro, so it could be even more packed. And that's why I think beyond the March 16th event, a date based on leaked Apple Card expansion dates going international in a lot of countries, yet another thing to add to the rollout, and we could get an event in April too. So on the 16th of March and probably shipping on the 26th of March, I think we'll see iOS 14.5, Apple Card's international rollout, but you'll be able to apply for that straight away to buy all the new toys, iPad's Pro 2021 model, Apple Pencil 3 or Apple Pencil Color, whatever they call it, AirPods and the iMac. Then in April, I think we will get AirPods Pro, because if they put them all out together, then people will just buy one or the other. This way they might get both. iPad and iPad mini, MacBook Pro 14-inch and 16-inch. So before we get into iCave answers, and smash your questions down in the comments section with that hashtag if you want me to answer it in a future video, let me know what you think of this list and what I've nailed or failed. And if you like this kind of video, a sub would be amazing, but let's get right into your questions. I answer these completely off the cuff, there is no script for these. Arthur Swart asks iCave answers. I'm surprised Intel didn't use the M1 SSD lock as an argument to decide for Intel. Without the ability to swap out an SSD in an M1 Mac device, the life expectancy of the M1 device equals that of the SSD. The smaller the SSD is, the faster it deteriorates. With Apple pricing being Apple pricing, more buyers will opt for less storage on board, thus shortening the life expectancy of the M1 devices. Intel-driven computers don't have that death clock, which would seem an advantage. What am I missing? So yes, certainly some Intel computers don't have that death clock, as you call it, but a lot of them do. It's not an exclusive thing to Apple to have soldered storage. It is rarer in PC laptops because they tend to be more kind of made on the fly. They don't tend to be custom built as such. They tend to be a kind of stock mainboard with a processor added to it, with storage added to it, whether it's an M.2 drive or an SSD drive, and then everything's kind of more modular because they're being bought from different manufacturers. Whereas with Apple, when they're building an M1, they kind of build the whole thing in one go pretty much. You are going to get your SoC, which has got your unified memory, your processors, your GPU, it's going to have your image signal processors and all of the kind of specific stuff as well. But also I believe that the flash memory chips are all very close. The reason that they're expensive is because they're incredibly fast and they use very, very high quality SSDs. Like, I don't know of many people that have had an SSD failure in a Mac before, and soldered storage has been a part of Apple's ecosystem for at least 5 years, if not probably going back to, I think my MacBook Air from 2011 has one of these storage devices as well, and that's been used consistently since 2011 when it was bought. No problems at all. I don't think in the normal service life of one of these M1 Macs that's actually going to be a problem. I know they're using it as a bit of a swap drive, but also Apple just uses really high quality components. And if there does become a problem where it's failing earlier than it should, then Apple will be pretty good at doing replacements. I know that's not great if you've lost data through one of these failing, but it's probably very, very unlikely. Hopefully that kind of covers it. William Philippe asks, let's talk about privacy and its wider implications, especially in the light of the impending skirmishes with the likes of Facebook and Google. As a Brit residing in New York, I insist on aluminium. So that's a bit of a reference to when I sort of said aluminum for some reason. It is aluminium, and if you live in America and you disagree with me, I'm afraid you're wrong. Just listen to Johnny Ive, he knows what he's talking about. But onto the privacy issue, which is obviously the actual question that you asked. Yes, so we have the app tracking privacy stuff coming, and This is not stopping Facebook from tracking you. It's not stopping Facebook from collecting anything within their own app. Regardless of your answer to the question, Facebook can still do that. Facebook can track your activity within their app on their own platform as much as they like. What the app tracking transparency label thing does is basically says, I don't want you to track me outside of this. And Apple is only asking the companies to respect that, but they're also probably going to enforce that with a stick if they need to by removing apps from the App Store. This doesn't mean you won't get personalised ads on Facebook, it just means that as long as they are following the rules, that those personalised ads will only be based on what you do within the app, not on your activity outside the app. When you're doing anything else on your phone, Facebook will not know what other apps you have installed, they will not know what other websites that you visit using Safari, that kind of thing. I'm kind of in two minds because I've worked in marketing on Facebook before, and it is very useful to be able to target specific groups because you don't kind of want to waste your ad dollars on a group that's not going to be interested in what you do. A lot of my life I've worked in the drinks industry, and if I was, for example, trying to market a spiced rum, there's very little point in my advert being shown to people that are under 18 or under 21 in the US. That is a waste of money, and it's probably not something you can legally do. So having some data on the people that you're marketing to is very important. But that being said, people don't all want to have their data there. Now, I think most people would prefer to have relevant adverts to them rather than irrelevant adverts, and the companies that are putting the adverts there would certainly want to have adverts that are relevant to the people that are seeing them, so that they are more likely to be interested and more likely to purchase something. That just makes sense. Facebook's issue is that less targeted adverts will earn them less money per click, so that makes a lot of sense that they would be concerned about it. But as long as Apple is giving you the option, and Facebook is having to give you the option of being tracked outside the app or only them being able to see what you do within their app, I think that's fine. So that's where I kind of stand on the Facebook and Apple privacy stuff. But I would be really interested to hear what everyone else thinks down in the comments. I'm sure this is going to be a worm can being opened. In fact, more a can of bees. Viberlion asks, Dave, won't titanium make MacBooks cost more? Now, we have actually done a whole video on this, which I will link up here, hopefully, as long as I don't forget to. And if I do, just type titanium into the channel and you will find it. But actually, in terms of raw material cost, the difference on a MacBook Pro is about $4 between aluminium and titanium. Titanium is about twice as expensive, but aluminium is not very expensive in the first place. So yeah, we're talking like it goes up to about $9 instead of $4.50, something like that in terms of material cost. Now, the machining does cost more because it is more difficult material to work with. It is much harder, but it's also because it is stronger than aluminium for the weight and lighter than steel to get to the same strength. It's kind of in that kind of middle space, so it means you can use less of it to actually make something just as strong. That means you can have a thinner enclosure that has less twist, less warp to it, and yeah, and it's also a lighter device, which is cool. So I don't know if they're going to go, this is premium, so we're going to put it in the MacBook Pros, or if they're going to go, this is super light, so we're going to put it in a MacBook Air, but I do expect that we will start to see it probably by the end of this year. But with the amount of money that they will be saving on Intel chips, I don't think that we're going to see a big increase in the price of these devices. Apple are going to be saving hundreds of dollars per chip on the higher end devices compared to Apple Silicon. Hopefully it should offset it quite nicely for that $4. That Drummer Kid asks, with the new MacBooks with MagSafe back and USB-C ports, could you also charge the MacBook through USB-C when using it in a desktop situation? That would save buying a second MagSafe charger. And that's a really cool question because it looks very much like Apple won't be stopping you from charging via USB-C. It doesn't look like they will go to only MagSafe charging. It looks like USB-C will just not be your primary charging method, but it will still be an option for you. But if you've got a MagSafe charger, you can use that to charge and keep your USB ports or your Thunderbolt ports free. So you can use those for more connectivity. and we're also going to have more other ports on there, so you might not need a dock and stuff. So it seems like a really good way of compromising, and also MagSafe is just a great bit of technology when it comes to the Macs, which basically means if someone trips over your cable, you don't send your MacBook flying across the room. And finally, Victor Rose asks, hope everything is well with you and your family. We'll be getting to that in just a moment. iCave answers, where is your Mac Mini now within the studio? It used to be on your Apple Cube, but it hasn't been there lately. Damn straight it hasn't. So my Power Mac G4 Cube sits at the back there. It is exactly the same kind of dimensions footprint wise as the Mac Mini, so it did used to sit on there. When I upgraded to this display, however, I did move my Mac Mini because all of my cable management was already in place, and the Cube used to sit kind of here. So the Mac Mini is right behind there, and I will show you. So come with me. Can we see? Just in there, you can just about see him. So my cable management is still not too bad, but that's where it is. So why was there no videos last Thursday and Friday? So if you've been following this channel at all, you will know that my youngest son Ted has had leukemia. He's actually in remission from leukemia, but still undergoing treatment. He's still got another 18 months of treatment left, and so he's often in hospital. We have to do the odd kind of overnighter, a couple of nights when he gets a temperature, that kind of thing. When we were in hospital this week, yeah, Thursday and Friday last week, we were back at the hospital, but we weren't there with Ted. We were there with my eldest son, Ollie, who is 6 and has autism, and also now type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is the one where it's kind of nothing to do with your diet, it's nothing to do with your kind of lifestyle, it's just that his pancreas has stopped making insulin. And that basically means that his blood sugar levels over the past year or so have been slightly creeping up. Got to the point where they got really high. We've kind of been monitoring it. We've been trying to get a referral, and we couldn't get it. It was going to be another 18 weeks. Had to go back to the GPs because his blood sugar was like super high, ketones and things like that. So we got taken to A&E, which is like the emergency room in the UK. I went down with him. My wife is the one that has kind of championed all of this and knew what was going on all the way through. She is just incredible at keeping an eye on all this stuff. So I took him down to the emergency room, had to give him insulin and stuff like that. Had a whole bunch of blood tests, and ended up I was there for a couple of nights with him. Now we are having to check his blood like 6 to 8 times a day, give him insulin injections, and it's going to be a big tough thing to deal with, but he's dealing with it really well. It's going to be a lifelong thing. It's not something that can be cured. It's not something you get over. So yeah, that's why I wasn't around, and it turns out this is a lot more work to manage than the leukemia thing for my other son, because that's basically like an oral chemotherapy once a day, which I'm about to do, and it's like 2 AM now because he had a nap in the day and has only just gone to sleep, and we have to leave gaps between milk and stuff like that. But yes, basically it's unfortunate. It's not something that it's not anyone's fault. It's just one of those things that happens. That is why there was no videos at the end of last week, and I really appreciate all of the messages coming in from you guys. Really means the world to me that you guys care enough that I'm not making videos, so that kind of suggests to me that we should keep doing these because you kind of like them. And just thank you so much, because there were so many nice messages going, where have you gone? Is everything okay? I hope your family's okay, because people know that we have some medical stuff in our family. So thank you all. That's kind of the update. There's not a great deal to tell you, but he's doing really well. He's dealing with everything really well. It's it's just a lot to take in at the moment, but we're going to be okay. Thank you so much for watching, and we will talk more Apple stuff tomorrow. Leave me any questions that you have down in the comments with hashtag iCave answers, and do the notification squad if you want. Thanks so much. See you next time.